Today, we're making the dish I made the most when I lived in France. So I guess there's not that much suspense. You just saw in the intro what it was. Might have come as a bit of a surprise to you. Before we go further, if you're new here, my name's Matt. I'm a self-taught home cook, and on this channel, we make incredible food from scratch in our home kitchens. Now, Chicken Cordon Bleu. Let's do a little bit of background. I went to school in France when I was in my late 20s. As you can imagine, the food is incredible in France. But at the end of the day, you need to cook at home, even if you live in a glamorous sort of food paradise that France is. And so when I went to the grocery stores, you would find obviously great cheeses and breads, but something that caught my eye were the frozen chicken cordon bleus. And I mean, what's not to like about chicken cordon bleu? It's Gruyere cheese and ham stuffed inside a chicken breast, which has been breaded. I mean, it's really, really good. I can't even remember the last time before this that I had a chicken cordon bleu. But I mean, in terms of frozen food, it's great. Even making it from scratch, like we're gonna do in a second. It only takes about 30 minutes or so to make them. So even though I don't live in France anymore, this is something that has made its way into my regular rotation. So let's jump in the kitchen and make a chicken cordon bleu. Our chicken cordon bleu starts with boneless, skinless chicken breast. To start off, we're gonna remove this tenderloin, I think it's called, or this just, it's this little piece sort of connects on the edge. Just using gravity, we'll set this aside. So in order to roll our chicken breast, which we need to do to create the stuffed cordon bleu, there's two ways that we can do it. We can cut this down here and sort of open it up like a book, or we can flatten this out and roll it tightly up. I think the first option is probably a little bit easier, but I don't think we're gonna get quite as good of a seal, and I think it's more likely that things are gonna ooze out. So I think it's a lot better for us to flatten this out. Start by putting some plastic wrap underneath the chicken on the cutting board. Put our chicken in the center. Then another piece goes on top. You could use a meat mallet if you have it. I don't have one, so I'm gonna use just a rolling pin, and we're going to hit this down until it forms an even thickness so we can roll it and it cooks evenly. A good tip with this is, as opposed to hitting straight down, you want to sort of hit to the sides and push the meat out. That'll help you create a thinner piece a lot quicker. As it starts getting to the shape that you want it, you need to check to make sure that it's an even thickness all the way throughout, and the best way to do that is with your hands. You could feel as you run your hand across this part here is a little bit thinner than this part over here. So I need to hit this out just a little bit more. So one more check, and it's feeling pretty good. Carefully take off the top layer of plastic wrap. We are ready to put our fillings in and create a cylinder basically for our stuffed cordon bleu. So I'm gonna brush on a very light layer of Dijon mustard. Not too much here. We really want the ham and the cheese to shine through. This is really just because mustard is delicious. Now the two star ingredients are Gruyere cheese and some cooked ham. Let's tear this in half. Piece of ham. Layer of Gruyere. Bit more ham. Okay, and then fold up the chicken. Very carefully roll that over. Just stretch the plastic wrap out a little bit. Continue to roll. Just making sure the plastic stays tight. And then when we get to the end, twist the sides together and then use the board to tighten things up. And if you keep twisting and twisting, you can pull the two ends together if you have good saran wrap, and you'll have a nice little ball. This needs to go into the fridge. It's gonna cool down, and what that's gonna do is basically firm this up so it's a lot easier to bread. So let's put this into the fridge. So our chicken is in the fridge, which means we have a few minutes to talk about breading. Breading is a 3-step process every single time. Well, that's not completely true. There's a 2-step breading process, but stick with me. 3 steps to bread almost anything. Chicken breast for a chicken cordon bleu. If you're making fried chicken, exact same process. Anything that you want to bread, we follow this process. Step number 1, we need to dry the outside of whatever we're cooking. To do that, we use flour. All-purpose flour Nothing fancy. Step number 2 is we need something for our breading to stick to, otherwise it's just gonna fall off. To do that, we use eggs. Eggs are a miracle ingredient. They can do almost anything. Once the chicken is completely covered in our sticky eggs, we can add a breading. Now, here's the time where you can get creative. You can use breadcrumbs. Panko breadcrumbs are really popular because they're bigger and you can get a crunchier texture on the outside. You could use oats if you want to be a little healthier and put it in the oven instead of frying it. Really anything that you want, you can put in your breading. And after that, you're all set. 3 steps, and you've created, in this case, a breaded chicken cordon bleu. Let's do it. Start with all-purpose flour. I like to season the flour with a bit of salt. Get all that combined. Part 2 is an egg. Add a splash of water to thin it out a bit. We are going to use some breadcrumbs. So there's lots of different things that you can add to this to season it. Really, sort of the world's your oyster here. You can add parsley, you can add melted butter. I'm gonna keep it pretty simple, just add some salt and black pepper. That was step 3. Let's get our chicken out of the fridge. Into our flour, which dries it off. Need to be a little gentle here so that things don't break, but because it was in the fridge, it should be easier to hold together. Now into the egg wash. We want this to be completely coated, no dry spots, otherwise the breading won't stick. And then just roll it around in the breading till it's completely covered with our breading. Take off any excess, and let's take this over to a pan. Our cooking process is basically 2 steps. We're going to brown the outside in some neutral oil and some butter for flavor and color. But we've got to be careful because the butter's going to burn. Because it's so thick, it's going to take us too long to cook this all the way through. So we will brown it for about 4 minutes or so on the outside and then put it in the oven to finish cooking. Probably about 10, 12, maybe even 15 minutes in the oven. Let's show you how to do it. Medium heat, a little bit of neutral flavored oil. I don't want to use olive oil here. I just want something to help facilitate the browning. And a little bit of butter, and in goes our chicken. We'll give this about 4 minutes or so before we flip it over. Okay, let's flip this over. So a good trick when you're trying to color things like a steak or like chicken like this is to baste it in the butter that's on the bottom. Flip it one more time. Get the side. Baste over here as well. We'll put this in the oven for probably about 10 minutes or so, maybe about 12 minutes. Spent about 14 or 15 minutes or so in the oven. All right, it looks pretty good, pretty crispy. The test is cutting into it and seeing how we did. Let's cut a slice. So look how good that looks with the cheese melted, the ham, the chicken is perfectly cooked, but most importantly, let's give this a try. Try a bite. Let's make sure I get some cheese too. Oh yeah, look at that stretch. It's really, really good. You know, who would have thought Gruyere cheese, ham, breaded chicken, fried chicken, basically, would be bad. It's probably about a 30-minute meal when all was said and done. Really, really great meal. If you like French dishes, I've cooked a few other dishes on my channel that you might like checking out. French onion soup, steak tartare. We'll link those. But thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. So good. Make sure I get some cheese and ham.